This episode is brought to you by Clark Dickerson. I was in my mid-20s when I made my first pledge to what is called a capital campaign. In case this is your first time hearing that term, a capital campaign is an effort to raise a lot of money to build something really big or to launch a project of the highest importance. We're talking about lots of people donating or pledging millions of dollars. In my case, I pledged something like $50 a month for 3 years to help my congregation build a new education wing. Capital campaigns require leadership from people who are gifted at encouraging people to give extraordinary gifts to something bigger than themselves. Clark Dickerson is one of those people whose gift for asking for gifts made him into a top capital campaign consultant. He's led over 250 capital campaigns. If you lead a Christian ministry or organization or a local church and you wonder how to activate the generosity of your people, Clark can help. He recently wrote a book, Growing into Generosity, that reveals how Christians can start to grow into generosity that eventually flourishes, not only in terms of what it does in the mission of God, but how it blesses and enriches givers themselves. Anyone who wants to grow more generous will benefit from the book, and Clark includes study questions that make it ideal for small groups, Sunday school, or even family discussion. Growing into Generosity by Clark Dickerson is available at Amazon.com and collegepress.com. Links in the show notes. And Clark is happy to answer your questions or come speak to your church or organization. Drop him an email at the link in the show notes or call 303-886-4531. That's 303-886-4531. Growing into Generosity by Clark Dickerson. Family and friends, neighbors, and most of all, strangers, welcome to the Christian Chronicle podcast. We're bringing you voices that speak to ideas, issues, and stories that Church of Christ congregations and members encounter today as they seek to practice the life of Jesus Christ in the places where God plants them around the world. I'm B.T. Irwin. May what you are about to hear honor God and illuminate you. On April 5, 2026, our guest preached an Easter sermon that surely was heard by more human beings in more parts of the world than any Easter sermon in 2,000 years of Easter sermons. And even though it was impromptu and short, this Easter sermon may go down in Christian history as one of the best of all time. Just listen.
As we are so far from earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see earth as one thing. And, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's, you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you. And I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing and that we got to get through this together.
What made Captain Victor Glover's Easter sermon so compelling is not just what he said, it's where he said it. At the time, he was 206,000 miles from Earth and traveling 1,771 miles per hour toward the moon. Along with his Artemis II crewmates, Commander Reed Wiseman, Mission Specialist Christina Cook, and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, Captain Glover was on his way to the dark side of the moon, more than 252,000 miles from Earth, the farthest human beings ever ventured into space. For 10 days between April 1 and April 10, 2026, the whole world hung on almost every word the Artemis II astronauts said about parts of God's creation that no humans had ever seen. In the days since humanity let out a collective exhale, when the astronauts made a safe return to Earth, it is safe to say that Glover, Hansen, Cook, and Wiseman have been the most admired and celebrated people on the planet. Stars twinkling in the night of human cynicism, now pandemic. It's remarkable that these days, giving hope to humans on Earth seems to require going into outer space. And Captain Glover has done that twice now. Before the Artemis II mission to the moon in 2026, he spent 168 days aboard the International Space Station in 2020 and 2021. Altogether, Captain Glover has spent 178 days in space. Now known to the world for his unapologetic faith and hope in God through Jesus Christ, Captain Glover is known to our Christian Chronicle audience as perhaps the most famous son of the Church of Christ these days. His feet are back on the ground, and he's here with us now. Captain Glover, welcome home. It's good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you too, BT.
Okay, so I got to start with this. Whenever I'm on a long trip and I start thinking about getting home, the things that I start thinking about the most are the little things like, I want to pop some popcorn and watch a movie with my family, or walk the dog around the neighborhood, or have coffee with my wife on the patio. As you were 252,000 miles from home, what were the little things that you look forward to getting back to the most?
Well, interestingly, that at that distance, the Earth is a little thing. It was about the size of your thumb. It's about that big. And so
wow,
that, it puts a lot of things in perspective. We use that word so much, but it truly was perspective, literal perspective, but also mental and emotional perspective. It just organized things. And so what was really on my mind at that time was continuing to execute the mission and not be distracted in the moment to just make sure that if something goes wrong, we can do the next right thing.
Right.
Because when we get home, even more than what I want, I know that my family is sort of waiting with bated breath, and they won't exhale until I'm safely back on Earth.
Wow. Like, what's the hardest adjustment to make after being on a mission and then coming back home again?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first time I went to space, I was on the space station for 167 days, a total of 168 days in space. And the biggest adjustment was just back to life. My kids had changed so much. 6 months is, forever to a young person, and they had changed a lot. The Earth was going through a lot, the COVID pandemic, and no vaccine when I launched, a vaccine when I landed. And my body was adjusting, my immune system was adjusting, my sense of balance. So there was a lot of physical adjustment. This mission, I think the reach that we've had, which is a great thing, we've touched so many people's lives, and I'm still processing it, but in that 10 days, it seems like we've had a real and profound impact on so many people that now we're seeing it. We show up places, to talk and to give a talk, but really I've gained the most from what I hear other people saying and sharing. And that's really the biggest adjustment to me is I don't want to talk about the mission. I want to hear other people talk about their experience, people's trepidation and being nervous and watching the parachutes and sitting at home. And I'm going, just that, how many people's prayer lists, how many cards I've received in the mail. I've got hundreds of cards and just letters from people about their thoughts and prayers and support and what they were doing and where they were. And that really is, I guess it's an emotional adjustment more than a physical adjustment.
Can you tell us something that somebody may have said to you that really made an impact on you once you got back?
Wow. There's a lot, and it's hard to distill, one thing out, because as soon as I say one, there's a whole bunch of other ones. And I'm going to say one of the most striking moments for me in all of this was, you may have heard this now, it's on social media and we've talked about it before, but when we landed, right after we landed, we got into the medical bay on the ship, and Reed called for the chaplain to come into the medical bay. And when he walked in, he got up and threw his arm around the chaplain and just started weeping. And that is one of the most profound moments of the whole mission to me. And I just feel like I just want to appreciate that moment. I don't want to label it. I don't want to call it anything, because that diminishes what I witnessed. And that what it spoke to me and what it spoke to that chaplain and what it spoke to Reed, that's more important than what I would say about it. And like I said, things like that have happened continually. And so just the meaningful conversations, the gratitude. I mean, we went to the White House and the president said, "Thank you for the courage." And I mean, like, it with all of the things in the world today that you can latch on to that are negative and divisive, there's been just so much love and appreciation and positivity poured out over this that it's hard to pick any one thing out. It's just been a stream of togetherness. And I think we should really ride that wave. We should figure out what we're doing different and how to keep it going.
The four of you were just universally beloved, and what you just said reflects just how much admiration is pouring out for y'all during the mission and since the mission. You're 50 years old, I think. I'm 50 years old. And so you said something about Han Solo wishes he was you. I don't remember where I read it, but you said Han Solo wishes he was me. So for all the people who know who you are now, and they admire you and they look up to you so much, and they think, man, I'm not Victor Glover. Like I'm just not, I don't fly to the moon. I'm not that special. I wish I could be him, but I'm not. What would you say to all those people, Han Solo included, who wish they could be Victor Glover?
Yes. Well, let me put that Han Solo comment in context, because what I'm going to say next would sound like a little bit of a conflict. Mm-hmm. Han Solo being a fictional character, and no matter who plays him, I mean, Harrison Ford to the modern versions, it's like they do a thing and convey art. That's great. But we got to do the closest thing to that for real. I mean, we went really, really fast and really, really far and got to go on a really blessed journey. And that to me is Emerson wrote, "The reward of a thing well done is having done it." And there's no trophy that can replace that experience. Yeah. And so the thing I would say to folks is, it's a couple things. One is, you are more like me than you think. And actually, that's a really important stat. That's a mouthful, actually. Here's a better way. We are more like one another than we think, and that we're told. And that's something we should meditate on and pray about. But also, I think part of me wants to say that you don't need to be me or like me. That's not the point. The point is to be the best version of you. And actually, the point is, if you're going to point at anything as something to grow into, it's to be like Christ. And so if we can all focus on that image, then that is going to make us all better. And we're going to all fall into place and do what we can to support one another. So when I say you're more like me than you think, or I am more like you, or we are more like one another, we're all weak, mortal beings that won't be here forever. And we need help. We need God's help, and we need each other's help. Those are just two facts. I don't care what line of thinking, what philosophy you subscribe to, what year you were born, with BCs or with ADs in the type. It doesn't matter. Those are true. We need help from each other and from God. And if you agree with that, then we're brothers. We're almost twins or sisters. We're the same. And so, in my 50 years on this planet, I've focused my, professional life on aerospace, but that doesn't, when you see how big the universe is, it's funny. We're like talking about how this is a record setting. In space terms, we're still taking baby steps. Yeah. So I think when God looks at us, how we're celebrating this, he's going, "That's cute. That's cute." We've still been nowhere. And so I'm not, we should celebrate when we need to, when there's time to celebrate. But we're a lot more like each other, right? When I went to the space station, that seemed like significant, but now you go to the moon and the space station now seems close. When somebody goes to Mars, the moon's going to seem close. There will always be farther away than. And if nothing else, all of those distances should make us appreciate the lack of distance between most humans. All humans live within about 8,000 miles of each other. And you know what? 8,000 miles is not that far with modern technology. But even if you can't get to all of them, we should be praying for, thinking about, and considering one another. And if we spent more time doing that, I think the world will be a better place.
one of the things that stuck with me from the last time we talked 3 years ago was when you talked about being on the space station. You said people might imagine that when you're out there, you can see all the stars really, really well. And you said, but actually it's just black. It's just void. And then I think it was maybe what you said on Easter this year about Earth being a spaceship. You're on a spaceship too. And it's this little thing, and it's surrounded by black, just nothingness. And that's kind of terrifying for me to think about, at least. So I want to ask you, what is it like to completely lose sight of the Earth?
Yeah. I think if we didn't train for it so much, it would be completely disorienting. It would be frightening, because one of the primary things our brains are doing all the time is trying to locate us, trying to tell us where we are. And when you lose the most important reference you have, the Earth, the center of the Earth, specifically gravity, when you just go to space, your brain starts to work much harder because it doesn't know which way is down, which way is the center of the Earth. So your brain already loses some of its capability just because it doesn't know where down is. If I close my eyes, I don't know direction until I open my eyes and orient visually. And so your brain is working harder and in new ways. And then when you lose complete visual reference, if you can't see the sun or the Earth, it's hard to know where in the universe you are. And the lighting conditions have to be right to see stars. When you see the Earth lit up in the daytime, it's so bright, it washes out the stars. At night, you can see some stars, but the conditions have to be right. And so your perspective, though, it's quite amazing when you think about the three-dimensionality of it. You're not looking up at stars like you do from Earth. We're in them. And so you feel out in the stars. And when you lose sight of Earth, it really puts what the universe looks like in relief. You see it up close, and it is mostly nothing. You see stars, it's star, empty space, star. Unlike here on Earth, when the sun rises in the east, the west is lit up as well, because light is bouncing off of the water molecules in the atmosphere. Our atmosphere creates this beautiful, blanket that we live underneath, and it makes us comfortable. It protects us from rocks flying through space. But when you're in space, there's no atmosphere to light up. So it's black and it's nothing, and then star, and then black, and then planet, and then black. And when you're that far away, you see it very clearly. There is no signpost holding up the Earth, like a gas station sign rotating. There are no cables hanging from the ceiling. There's no ceiling. There's no top. There's no bottom. Wow. And so you are on a spaceship. And listen, if that's terrifying, good. It should put our heart closer to knowing that we rely on something else to survive, to live. And if it's terrific to you, good. You should be thankful that something made that happen. It put you right at the right distance from the sun to not burn up and to not freeze. And whether you're terrified or you find it terrific, both of those things can nudge our heart towards gratitude and appreciating how special Spaceship Earth is.
Wow. Well said. Well, last time we talked, you've said it several other places, there are no atheists on top of rocket ships. And I thinking about your mission, there are times in my life where I just can't help praying. Like it's just like a geyser that comes up inside of me, either because I'm afraid or I'm overwhelmed with joy. On your 10-day mission, where were the periods of time or instances where it was involuntary? You were just compelled to pray from within yourself?
It was almost constant. I prayed before the mission because it's a habit that I've tried to develop. I love this distinction, though. There's the tradition or the ritual, the thing that I intentionally do, right? I have built this before I step into a jet to go fly. I pray and I text or call my family to tell them that I love them, so that if something happens to me, that's the last thing they heard from me. And that's, again, my affairs are in order so I can be fully present. But then there's the unexpected. The universe has its way with you, and your response, your natural response, is to call on God. The number of times that I heard, "Oh my God," and it was truly the only thing that made sense. What we were saying did not make sense, and to say God did that was the right response. And it wasn't always me saying it. It was mostly not me saying it, and I just it made my heart smile. Even while my brain was trying to grapple with what I was seeing and feeling while floating 252,000 miles from Earth, it just didn't make sense, and it didn't have to make sense. My heart responded with this awe for the creator. And all of us are built, I believe, with this reverence for something. And if you build the habit of putting something healthy there, then you want to give glory to God. And, we can also build that into giving our attention to unhealthy things. And so it was neat to see my crewmates respond in that way too, with true awe and wonder.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, it was constant. I prayed when we lost communication with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the middle of making observations of the moon, because when we did that, that's when we were closest to the moon.
Yes.
And I'm actually I've got a headset on and I'm making a recording of what I'm seeing. And when we went into contact, the very first thing I did was pray. I still had the recording going. So the lunar science team has these descriptions of geologic structures on the earth. Right in the middle of it, there's a prayer. It's interrupted by me praying. And then I went right back to the science, and they have it now. And they actually asked me, they're like, hey, is it okay if we have this? Is this private, restricted? Yeah. And I told them, hey, if you're interested in that, please have it, because it came up, it welled up inside of me. And that's something I'm actually going to spend more time thinking about, is kind of the ritual versus the response. What was just truly authentic and organic and was a response to what we were seeing and experiencing.
You strike me as someone, but your entire life story, everything leading up to now, you use the word ritual several times. You strike me as someone who's intentional about making space and time for God. Are you willing to share, like on Earth, are you willing to share a little something about your personal devotional life, how you do that every day?
Yes. And this is also harkens. It touches back on what we said earlier, that we are more alike. I am a pretty disciplined person, but I'm also weak and I fall short. So here's the first thing I want to say about that is I have started read the Bible in a year twice and didn't finish it. And I've had to give myself grace on that. I've been a little busy for the last 3 years, and I'm not saying that to make an excuse. I'm saying that to connect with all the people who strive to be better. And if we're all striving, that's good. I think God wants us to want to read our Bible and then to have it memorized and never pick it up. So I'm not saying that to make excuses. I try and I fall short sometimes. And sometimes I read as much as I intend to, but also sometimes I'm speed reading and I'm just trying to get to the end because I set a goal. I do a lot of the things, but I will tell you, prayer is a natural part of my life. I probably am the most disciplined about prayer, where it even comes up organically. I think I've told you the story about losing a piece of a machine I was fixing on the space station. And right before calling the ground and just giving up and admitting that I had failed at this thing and it was going to stay broken, I not only prayed, but I wanted to take the posture of submission. And I wanted to lie on my face, and I floated down by the deck. And when I opened my eyes, the air conditioner had moved me to the side, and I was looking straight at that piece. It was on an air conditioning inlet. Wow. And I don't say that because it's not a miracle. That wasn't a miracle. That happened because the mature Christian in me yearned to take the physical posture of submission. And so, but also I fall short. There are times when I should stop in the moment and give glory to God. Thank God. There are times when people applaud me, and I should remind them that this talent and timing was given by God, that I had way less control than what you're seeing, and that it didn't start like this. And I should point to God, and I don't. And so I think it's important to not paint this, picture of this, disciplined, structured guy that, like, I get it wrong all the time. And that's one of the beauties. The Bible says that we've all sinned and fall short. And I am in that camp as well. I need God just like all of us do. And I try to fill my life with it, but I could do better. And I'm trying to do better.
Thank you for sharing that. I was doing a lot of research on the technical aspects of the mission when I was getting ready to have this conversation with you. And it occurred to me in all of that the rocket science, as we would call it, is really hard. It's rocket science. But I read somewhere that the size of the Orion space capsule was about 2 minivans put together. And I thought about 4 adult human beings being in that space for 10 days. And I started thinking the human element of this mission has to be the most complicated. And so I feel like you had to have learned a lot in your training and through the mission itself about how to be intentional about getting along with people and working well with people. And so how did you prepare and train for being with 3 other adult human beings in this small space, 250,000 miles from home? for 10 days.
You nailed something. Well, first of all, if it's too many vans, I think that's being a little generous. I don't know
Really?
what kind of minivan.
Oh, man.
I would say it's one with the seats lying flat,
Wow.
We knew at the beginning of this journey that the path was not going to be clear, and we're going to have to do developmental work and train and build the training and go back and adjust the training. We also knew that human element was going to be as important as the technical, that the psychological and social was just as important. Well, we happen to have a group here that are called Behavioral Health and Performance, and we have some really amazing specialists called operational psychologists. And we called them up and said, hey, we need help. We need help being the best individuals and the best team that we can be. And I will tell you, we practiced skilling up ourselves from a character and personality perspective and a team perspective as much as we did learning to fly a spaceship and learning lunar science. And we did that for 3 years. So it was not an accident. We did not just happen to go out there and NASA picked the 4 people who could talk to the poetry. We wrote an English professor to talk to us about creative language, and we wrote poetry and read poetry and broke it down. And we did drills with that. We reached out to some historians in the UK that took us through the historical and cultural and religious significance of the moon throughout history and recorded history. And so we worked as hard at all the facets of this, and we still probably forgot something, but we did it intentionally. That is the point, is we were willing and intentional, and we went and reached out to the people who could help us. And I'll tell you, and along the way, for me, I was also very intentional about reading my Bible, and Jeremy was very intentional. He went to Canada and met with a group. It's called the Turtle Lodge. It's like representatives from all the Native Canadian nations. And they actually came up with this idea of him going on a vision quest. And I will tell you, I have a real appreciation for all ancient wisdom. And that influenced our mission in bountiful ways. But the one thing I can tell you was consistent. And I was not the first person to use this word. Christians do not have the primary stake in the word grace. Living in Orion for 10 days and training to live in Orion for 3 years prior to that, we had to give and receive grace continually. There was a heaping of grace in that capsule. We named our capsule Integrity. If we wouldn't have named it Integrity, the name might have been Grace. And we use that today, and we still are giving each other grace, and it's important. And I am grateful when I receive grace from my crewmates.
One of the interesting things I found out when I was researching, and along those lines, the poetry thing caught my attention just now, is that around the time that you and I talked in 2023, you gave an interview to Axios in which you said you were listening twice a week on your way to work. You were listening to the spoken word poem, Whitey's on the Moon by Gil Scott Heron, and you wanted to share that with your crewmates. Would you share with us how this spoken word poem not only figures into the mission and your relationship with your crewmates, but into your Christian outlook on life in this world? Share a little more about that with us.
Man, thank you for bringing that up. I know that my comments on that have upset some people, and I've seen some of the feedback on that, and I think it's maybe a lack of understanding or a lack of my explanation. But I did share it with my crewmates, and they listened and they appreciated it. It started good conversations, and I will tell you, the thing that I think maybe is offensive is the title. People don't like the title of it, and it's harsh. It is harsh. I didn't name it, but when you listen to it, what it's speaking to is a condition that was true for some people at that time. And that's what speaks to me. It speaks to my heart. As much as I want to talk about space and exploration and the moon, there are people back here that are like potholes and rent and healthcare. And you know what? That matters. I need to listen to that. In 1968, when humans first set out to go to the moon, a group of folks that, Martin Luther King led this movement before, and then he was assassinated. And Reverend Ralph Abernathy led a protest to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And they showed up there, and the NASA administrator met with them, and they talked in dialogue. They listened to one another. They were respectful to each other. And he said, if I could not push the button and solve all of the problems that you're talking about, I would absolutely do that. But to not do that wouldn't fix the problem. So I want to execute this mission, but I would love it if you would pray for us and pray for these astronauts. And before it was over with, that group of people who came to protest were singing songs of worship, and they prayed for those 3 astronauts to go to the moon and come back safely. Wow. And I think that's a beautiful story. And it connects more than just technology. It talks about the social fabric of our country and where it was. That's why I listened to that song. And I listened to that song once a week. I also listened to Marvin Gaye's Makes Me Want to Holler. He talks about rockets, flying rockets, but he talks about living in the ghetto. And so I just think it's important for us as astronauts, as human space explorers, to know everyone out there is not cheering on NASA. Some people have questions. Why are we spending those billions of dollars? And if they don't understand, that just means we have work to do. And the work to do is not to just try to convince them that every dollar we spend at NASA is $3 to $7 of economic activity outside. The first thing we have to do is build trust by listening. When they say, hey, healthcare is expensive, gas is expensive, we should just listen. Yes. Yes, it is. I have children, and I listen to their thoughts. They have questions. They don't just assume, that what I'm doing is the greatest thing in the world just because their dad works for NASA. And when they ask me tough questions, I have to really appreciate their thought process. And those songs and the poems represent that to me, understanding where the rest of the country is. And as ambassadors and stewards of the public stuff, I think it's a part of our responsibility to know how people feel.
Great answer. One more big question here for you, and this has to do with kind of my Church of Christ upbringing, and that is our tradition comes out of the 1800s when Americans were, pioneers are moving across the frontier, and then the explosion of missionary work in the 20th centuries, and so we were raised kind of to believe that we have to take God to new places where God hasn't been before. But when you really look at the book of Acts, we see that everywhere Christians go, God is there first. And God is constantly drawing them to places that are new and unfamiliar to them, not to God, and revealing to them things about himself in this world that we don't know and can't imagine until we follow God to new places. So if it's the case that we follow God to the places God wants to reveal to us, what does God want to reveal by drawing us to the far side of the moon?
Well, I'm going to borrow some words and then think and talk at the same time and hope I can maybe actually answer your question. But I'm going to start with T.S. Eliot, the poet, a person who wrote as a profession. So in the beginning of Little Giddings, he said, "We shall not cease from exploration. And at the end of our exploring, we will return home and see it as for the first time." I read that introduction to that poem the first time in Michael Collins' book, Carrying the Fire, about his mission Apollo 11, when 2 of his crewmates walked on the surface of the moon. And I say that because I was reading this book about Apollo astronauts, but I found this poetry that really stuck to me. And I love what you just said. It's so poetic. I'm going to go back and listen to this recording because I actually want to really dissect what you said. What you said, I'm still chewing on it. It was so beautiful how you put that.
Thank you.
And I just want to speak to one facet of it, that we think it's our job to be frontiersmen as missionaries and go and take the word. And the Great Commission does tell us to do that, but there's a lot in that. And we don't think about how important relationships are. If you try to really, truly carry out the Great Commission, it means you have to be comfortable and have credibility in communities that are not yours, that are not, groups of believers and your fellow Christians. That's a tall order for most of us.
Yes.
And we're not truly trained and equipped for that. There's a way to get there, but most of us don't start there. And so when we go to places like the wilderness where humans aren't, and we try to set up shop there, the reason that I agree with you, God is already there. The reason God needs to be more there is because we're there. Now we need to appreciate God in that new place. The weak link coming into that circumstance is us. It's not that beautiful creation that we're surrounded by. It was fine before you got there. And now you want to plant a garden, or you want water on a regular basis, or the sun is hot and you want some shade. And so it's a reminder that we all need God, that I cannot will a mustard seed to grow. Just because I'm hungry won't make the plant grow. It was designed to grow, and it takes time. And so it's important for us to be humble and to remember that we need God. And it's us going to these places, going to the far side of the moon. I think I come back to the idea that the Apollo astronauts found as well. And I think each of them appreciated Earth in a way that they could not have, religious or not. they appreciated Earth in a way they could not have if they hadn't gone to the moon. So I think knowing that ahead of time, I was prepared. I launched with that idea. I came back from the space station feeling renewed about Earth. And so what has also been added to it for me is I have a special calling, I believe. Not a special calling. I have a calling. No, I have a commitment to share this experience in a way that isn't me telling you about this once in a lifetime experience I've had. It's to give it to you. The overview effect is not as important as the effect that we have here at sea level. The overview effect is this potential 700 people. What's the point of the 700 people's experience if they can't share it with the 7 billion people? Yeah. If we can get the 330 million Americans to connect to this experience and to think of this Earth as our spaceship that we crew together, then we're moving the needle. And I think God needs to be at the center of that, because we've shown what happens when we put our intellect at the center. It's what's happening in the world today. We can look at this with a fresh set of eyes. We can see home as if for the first time. We have an opportunity to rethink this proposition and to put something better in the middle, in that special place. And I think I'm going to try to do my part by sharing this experience in a way that it's not because I got to go do this thing. I got to go do it for all of us. So when I'm telling it to you, I'm giving it to you. It's yours. The eclipse we saw by the moon, it happened. That existed in the universe. I just got to be there. And I'm just a messenger of it. I saw this beautiful thing that God set in motion at the beginning of time. And I was there at that one precise moment. But it's not mine only. I'm giving it to you in a way to not say, look at this cool thing I did that you can't do. I'm giving it to you so you can take ownership of it, so that we can then move out from there together and figure out how to reorganize and reprioritize this thing we call life.
I'm going to make an observation right now, and it's this, riffing on what you said. Quite possibly, I think what you said on Easter may go down in history as one of the most famous Easter sermons ever preached. And you were preaching it from the far reaches of outer space. And so by following God into outer space, you were able to have an experience and see things that turned into this testimony that everyone on earth heard on Easter and has been talking about ever since. So thank you for your words that day. I believe they were inspired. You said it yourself. You didn't really have anything prepared, and then you said something, and I think that was inspired. So thank you for opening up and preaching an excellent Easter sermon. You really did.
Thank you.
All right. So last question. You've been to space a lot. You've been flying, test pilot, astronaut. What's the next frontier for you now?
There's a lot of America that I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 daughters that are my youngest, my baby graduates from high school.
Is that right?
Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
I have a feeling those 2 things are going to be the foundation for whatever the rest of this journey is. I've already seen more in aerospace than one person deserves, and I'm not chomping at the bit to do anything more. I'm not chasing records and wins or numbers. I've already been blessed more than I deserve. I truly believe that. And so I want to be there for my kids and for my wife. Mm-hmm. And I want to spend time with the people that I love. Like I said, if I'm truly sharing this experience in a way that makes it yours, that takes time. It's going to take connection. And I want to spend time with the people that I love, my friends and my family. And like I said, and there's a lot of this planet that I have yet to explore. And I see it as new. And I'm excited to go out and find out and get lost in some places and have a new adventure on Earth.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your adventure in space with us again. I have to tell you, when you splashed down, first of all, my family was watching Apollo 13 while that was happening. We were watching Apollo 13, and my wife was like, check the phone. And I finally was like, I said, they're home, they're safe. And we all let out a cheer. But the Christian Chronicle, our email, it blew up. Everybody wanted to hear from you. And so for all the people in the Christian Chronicle audience that wanted to hear exactly what you just shared with us. Thank you for making the time. And we're also so very thankful to God for bringing you home. And thank you for your testimony to us all today.
We are thankful as well. And for you and all of the listeners and readers' prayers. And I'd say, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
Amen. Amen. Looking forward to it. Grace and peace.
Same to you.
We hope that something you heard in this episode encouraged, enlightened, or enriched you in some way. If it did, thanks be to God. And please pay it forward, subscribe to this podcast, and share it with a friend. Recommend and review it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your subscription, recommendation, and review help us reach more people. Please send your comments, ideas, and suggestions to podcast@christianchronicle.org. And don't forget our ministry to inform and inspire Christians and congregations around the world is a nonprofit ministry that relies on your generosity. So if you like the show and want to keep it going and make it even better, please make a tax-deductible gift to the Christian Chronicle at christianchronicle.org/donate. The Christian Chronicle podcast is a production of the Christian Chronicle Incorporated, informing and inspiring Church of Christ congregations, members, and ministries around the world since 1943. The Christian Chronicle's managing editor is Calvin Cockrell, editor-in-chief Bobby Ross Jr., and president and CEO Eric Trigestad. The Christian Chronicle podcast is written, directed, and hosted by B.T. Irwin and recorded in Detroit, Michigan, USA. Editing, show notes, and transcript services by Kinsey James. Mastering, mixing, and sound quality by James Flanagan. Until next time, may grace and peace be yours in abundance.